Ramen again? Sophia sighed, picking at the noodles with a pair of chopsticks that had definitely seen better days. I swear, Jason, if I see another instant noodle packet, I'm gonna scream. Hey, I said, flashing her a grin. It's gourmet ramen, extra flavor packet. She rolled her eyes, but a smile tugged at the corner of her lips. You always know how to make me laugh, she said, reaching across the table to take my hand. But seriously, when is this big break going to happen? I'm tired of living on noodles and dreams. Soon, I promised, squeezing her hand. This app is going to be huge. Just wait and see. We'll be swimming in venture capital, eating caviar off gold platters. And I'll finally be able to afford that handbag I've been eyeing. She finished, her eyes sparkling with a mix of hope and longing. We were young, broke, and ridiculously in love. We shared a tiny apartment, even tinier bank accounts, and a mountain of dreams. Sophia, with her fiery ambition and unwavering belief in my genius, was my rock. We were going to conquer the world together, or so I thought. The cracks started appearing subtly at first. A missed bill here, a skipped meal there, the growing frustration in Sophia's eyes. I was so focused on my app, on building our future, that I didn't see the present crumbling around me. Then, one night, it all came crashing down. Jason, Sophia said, her voice trembling, we need to talk. I looked up from my computer, my eyes blurry from staring at code for hours. Can it wait, babe? I'm close to a breakthrough. No, it can't wait, she said, her voice firm, resolute. I can't do this anymore. Do what? I asked, my stomach churning with a sense of dread. This, she said, gesturing around our cramped apartment, at the empty ramen packets, at the everything. This life, this struggle. I need more. More? I echoed, my voice cracking. But we have us. Us isn't enough anymore, Jason, she said, tears welling in her eyes. I love you, but I can't wait forever. I need stability. I need a man who can take care of me. And just like that, she was gone. Walked out of my life and into the arms of David Lancaster, the CEO of a multi-million-dollar corporation, the man who could give her the stability and the more she craved. I was devastated. The world I had built, the future I had envisioned, it all crumbled around me. I was lost, adrift in a sea of despair, the only constant, the gnawing ache in my chest, the bitter taste of betrayal on my tongue. Then, fate dealt its final blow. A late-night drive, a patch of black ice, a blinding flash of headlights, and then, nothing. Or so I thought. Waking up in my old, crappy apartment was like stepping into a bad rerun. The same faded posters on the walls, the same creaky floorboards, the same lingering smell of instant noodles. Except, something was different. My laptop was older, bulkier. My phone was that a flip phone? And where the hell was my beard? What the? I mumbled, stumbling out of bed, my head pounding. Then it hit me. The accident. Sophia. David Lancaster. The crushing weight of it all came flooding back, a tidal wave of grief and regret. Except, it wasn't grief I was feeling. It was anger. A burning, incandescent rage at the injustice of it all. I checked the date on my archaic phone. 5 years. 5 years I had lost. 5 years wasted on a woman who didn't appreciate me, a dream that had crumbled to dust. But then, a different feeling emerged. Not grief, not anger, but opportunity. A second chance, a do-over. This time, things would be different. This time, I wouldn't waste my time on Sophia and her insatiable desire for more. This time, I would build my empire first. My phone buzzed, a text from Sophia. Coffee at the usual place? Miss you? I stared at the message, a wave of nausea washing over me. The usual place was the diner where we had shared countless meals, countless dreams, countless lies. Not this time, I muttered, deleting the message. Not this time, Sophia. I called Ben, my voice trembling with a mix of disbelief and determination. Ben, it's me. Jason, meet me at the coffee shop. Now. He rushed in, breathless and bewildered. Dude, what's going on? You look like you've seen a ghost. I have, I said, my voice grim. My own. I told him everything. The accident, the rewind, the opportunity. Dude, he breathed, his eyes wide with disbelief. You're messing with me, right? I wish I was, I said, my voice firm. But I'm not. This is real, and this time, I'm not going to waste it. We spent the next few hours outlining my plan. It was audacious, risky, and brilliant. I knew the future. I knew which companies would succeed, which investments would pay off, which technologies would disrupt the industry. And I knew exactly how to use that knowledge to build my empire. This is insane, Ben said, shaking his head. But insanely brilliant. Exactly, I said, a grin spreading across my face. This time, I'm not playing by the rules. This time, I'm writing them. And as I walked out of the coffee shop, the familiar streets suddenly looking new, the future stretching before me like an open road, I felt a surge of power, a sense of purpose I had never felt before. This was my reset, my rebirth, my chance to win. And this time, nothing would stop me. Okay, so knowing the future is kind of like having a cheat code for life. Except instead of unlimited lives and invincibility, I had, well, unlimited cash and market predictions. Not quite as exciting as blowing up virtual aliens, but definitely more practical. I started small. No flashy Lamborghinis or penthouse apartments just yet. Discretion was key. I needed to build my empire quietly, under the radar, before I made my grand entrance. Ben, bless his loyal heart, was my partner in crime. He handled the logistics, the paperwork, the boring stuff. I focused on the big picture, the strategic moves, the cheat codes. Dude, are you sure about this? Ben asked, nervously watching the stock ticker on his screen. This seems risky. Trust me, I said, leaning back in my chair, a confident smirk spreading across my face. I know what I'm doing. And I did. I knew which tech companies would explode, which startups would become unicorns, which investments would turn pennies into millions. I poured every spare dollar into the market, taking calculated risks, leveraging my knowledge of future trends. It was exhilarating. Watching the numbers climb, the bank account swell, the potential grow. It wasn't just about the money. It was about proving myself, about building something real, something lasting. I worked tirelessly, fueled by a mix of ambition and, a healthy dose of spite. I spent hours researching, analyzing, strategizing. I was obsessed, driven, focused on one goal, building my empire. You're working too hard, man, Ben said one night, as I was hunched over my laptop surrounded by charts and graphs. You need to relax. Enjoy the fruits of your labor. Relax, I scoffed. Ben, this is just the beginning. I'm not going to stop until I've achieved everything. Everything, he echoed, his brow furrowed. What's everything to you, Jason? I hesitated, the image of Sophia and David Lancaster flashing through my mind. Everything, I said finally, is revenge. Ben didn't say anything, but I could see the concern in his eyes. He didn't understand. He didn't understand the burning need inside me, the desire to right the wrongs of the past, to show them all. But he didn't need to understand. He just needed to trust me, and he did. Loyal, dependable Ben. My rock. Just like I used to be for Sophia. The irony wasn't lost on me. The money piled up, millions, but I remained discreet. No flashy cars, no extravagant parties, no Sophia. I kept my head down, focused on my work, on my plan, on my revenge. And as I sat there late one night staring at the glowing screen, the numbers dancing before my eyes, I couldn't help but smile. The game was afoot, and I was playing to win. Okay, so knowing the future isn't just about playing the stock market. It's about disrupting it. And I knew exactly which industry was ripe for disruption. AI automation. It was the future, the next big thing, the key to my empire. Forget building just wealth. I was building a legacy, a tech behemoth that would reshape the world and incidentally make me ridiculously rich. Priorities, people. O'Connell Automations, I announced to Ben, scribbling the name on a napkin during one of our late-night brainstorming sessions. Catchy, right? And it perfectly encapsulates our world domination plan. Ben chuckled, but I could see the spark of excitement in his eyes. He knew I was onto something big, something revolutionary. I recruited a team. Not just any team, the best of the best. Coding geniuses, AI specialists, marketing gurus, the Avengers of the tech world. Except, instead of saving the planet, they were going to help me. Well, conquer it. We're not just building software, I told them, my voice filled with a passion that surprised even myself. We're building the future, a future where AI automates everything from mundane tasks to, well, everything. And we're going to be the ones who make it happen. They were hooked. My enthusiasm was contagious. They saw the potential, the possibilities, the sheer coolness of it all. We worked tirelessly, fueled by caffeine, ambition, and the thrill of creating something groundbreaking. My office became a chaotic hub of innovation. Whiteboards covered in complex equations, computer screens glowing with lines of code, the air buzzing with ideas and excitement. It was exhilarating. I was in my element, leading the charge, pushing the boundaries of what was possible. This is amazing, Jason, one of my lead developers said one night, staring at a complex AI algorithm we had just cracked. This could change everything. It will change everything, I corrected him, a confident smirk spreading across my face. And we're going to be the ones who control that change. It wasn't just about the technology. It was about the strategy. I knew which industries were ripe for disruption, which companies were vulnerable, which targets were ripe for the picking. I was playing chess, not checkers. Thinking several moves ahead, anticipating the market trends, positioning my company for maximum impact. It wasn't just about making money. It was about building power, influence, a legacy. And as I sat there, late one night, surrounded by my team, the hum of computers filling the air, the glow of the screens reflecting in my eyes, I couldn't help but smile. This was it, my creation, my empire, my revenge. And it was just the beginning. Taking down David Lancaster wasn't just about building a better company. It was about playing the long game, a game of subtle manipulation and calculated moves. It was about getting close, gaining his trust, becoming his friend. Friend? Ben choked on his coffee when I told him my plan. You want to befriend the guy who stole your girlfriend and basically ruined your life? Not exactly befriend, I corrected him, a sly grin spreading across my face. More like infiltrate, become his confidant, his mentee. Ben stared at me, his eyes wide with disbelief. Dude, you're playing with fire. Exactly, I said, relishing the thrill of the risk. And I love the heat. I started subtly. Casual encounters at industry events, carefully crafted compliments about his business acumen, which, to be fair, he did have, along with a healthy dose of arrogance, and the occasional accidental bump-in at his favorite coffee shop. David, fancy meeting you here, I'd exclaim, feigning surprise. Just grabbing a quick caffeine fix before conquering the world. You know how it is. He'd chuckle, his ego inflated by my admiration. He saw me as a promising young entrepreneur, eager for his guidance, his approval. Exactly what I wanted him to see. I played the role to perfection. The eager protege, hanging on his every word, seeking his advice, flattering his ego. It was disgusting, really, but it was working. Jason, you've got a good head on your shoulders, he'd say, patting me on the back with a condescending air. You remind me of myself back in the day. Thank you, David, I'd reply, my voice dripping with false gratitude. I'm truly honored to have your mentorship. Mentorship involved invitations to exclusive events, introductions to influential investors, and access. access to David's inner circle, his company's financial reports, his weaknesses. I was a spy in the enemy camp, gathering intel, observing his every move, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. "This is twisted, Jason," Ben said one night, as I was recounting my latest mentoring session with David. "Twisted," I echoed, a mischievous glint in my eyes. "Or strategically brilliant?" Ben just shook his head, a mix of amusement and concern on his face. He didn't understand the depths of my plan, the intricate web I was weaving, the satisfaction I derived from playing David like a fiddle. But he didn't need to understand. He just needed to trust me. And he did. And as I delved deeper into David's world, gaining his confidence, learning his secrets, I couldn't help but feel a surge of power. The power of knowledge, the power of manipulation, the power of revenge. The game was on, and I was winning. It was at one of those stuffy charity galas David dragged me to. The kind where people with more money than sense try to outdo each other with their philanthropy, that I met Evelyn. She was nothing like her brother. Where David was all sharp angles and calculated charm, Evelyn was softer. Warm smile, genuine laugh, and eyes that sparkled with intelligence and a hint of mischief. "You must be Jason," she said, extending a hand towards me. "David's told me all about you. The tech wunderkind, is it?" "Wunderkind?" I chuckled. "That's a new one. Usually it's that guy who's going to take over the world with his robots." She laughed, a melodic sound that cut through the pretentious chatter of the gala. "Well, in that case, I'm rooting for the robots." We talked. Not about stock options or market trends, but about books, art, and, well, the absurdity of the whole charity gala scene. She was witty, insightful, and surprisingly down to earth for someone who grew up with a silver spoon in her mouth. "You know," she said, leaning closer, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, "I think these events are just an excuse for people to show off their expensive jewelry." "You might be onto something," I said, grinning, "though I'm more impressed by your rebellious spirit." She winked. "Don't tell David. He still thinks I'm a sweet, innocent little sister." We spent the rest of the evening together, tucked away in a quiet corner, away from the pretentious crowd. It was easy, comfortable, like talking to an old friend, and as the night wore on, I found myself intrigued. This wasn't part of the plan. Evelyn Lancaster was a complication, a variable I hadn't accounted for. She was David's sister, for crying out loud. But there was something about her, something magnetic. The encounters became more frequent. Accidental run-ins at the coffee shop, okay, maybe not so accidental. Impromptu lunch dates, even a shared love for obscure indie films. Turns out, Evelyn has a surprisingly dark sense of humor. "You're not at all what I expected," she confessed one afternoon as we were strolling through a park, the autumn leaves crunching beneath our feet. "And what did you expect?" I asked, curious. "A ruthless, ambitious shark," she said, her eyes twinkling. "Like David." "Ouch," I said, feigning offense. "And what am I, then?" "A puzzle," she said, her gaze lingering on mine. "A fascinating, complex puzzle." A puzzle, interesting. I was used to being underestimated, dismissed even, friend-zoned. But Evelyn, she saw something different. Something more. And as I looked at her, her smile warm and genuine, her eyes filled with a curiosity that mirrored my own, I realized that the complication might just be the best part of the plan. Okay, so acquiring a company isn't as easy as they make it look in the movies. There are no dramatic boardroom showdowns, no shouting matches with clenched fists, no Patrick Bateman-esque monologues about business cards. It's more like a chess game. A slow, strategic, and incredibly boring chess game. But hey, I was playing to win. My first move was inconspicuous. I started buying shares in Lancaster Corp, small packets at first, nothing that would raise any eyebrows. I used shell companies, offshore accounts, the whole 9 yards. It was all perfectly legal, of course, just discreet. "Dude, this is going to take forever," Ben groaned, staring at the complex web of transactions on his computer screen. At this rate, you'll be 100 years old before you own enough shares to make a difference. Patience, my friend, I said, leaning back in my chair, a confident smirk spreading across my face. Rome wasn't built in a day, and neither are hostile takeovers. But I wasn't just buying shares, I was influencing. Subtly, of course. I used my newfound connections, the ones I had cultivated through my friendship with David, to plant seeds of doubt, to spread rumors, to create an atmosphere of uncertainty around Lancaster Corp. Heard their latest product launch was a flop. I'd casually mentioned to an investor at a cocktail party. Seems like their innovation, well, let's just say it's not what it used to be. Or, David seems a bit stressed lately, I'd confide in a business journalist. Maybe the pressure of running a multi-million-dollar company is finally getting to him. Nothing concrete, nothing that could be traced back to me, just whispers. Whispers that slowly eroded confidence, that created cracks in David's carefully constructed facade. And then there were the accidents. A leaked internal memo here, a delayed shipment there, let's just say that sometimes a little bit of bad luck can go a long way. This is borderline unethical, Jason, Ben said one day, his brow furrowed with concern. Unethical? I echoed, feigning innocence. Ben, I'm just playing the game. The same game everyone else is playing, just better. He didn't say anything, but I could see the disapproval in his eyes. Ben was a good guy, with a strong moral compass. I, on the other hand, let's just say that my moral compass had been recalibrated after my untimely demise and subsequent rebirth. But I didn't care. I had a goal, a mission, a revenge, and I wouldn't let anything or anyone stand in my way. The shares kept accumulating, slowly, steadily, like a tide creeping in, unnoticed until it's too late. I was becoming a silent partner, a shadow lurking in the background, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. And as I watched David, his confidence waning, his empire slowly crumbling, I couldn't help but feel a surge of satisfaction. This was it. The culmination of years of planning, of strategizing, of being reborn. The game was nearing its end game, and I was ready to checkmate. Okay, so planting seeds of doubt is one thing. Full-blown sabotage? That's a whole different ballgame, and I was ready to play. I had been gathering intel on Lancaster Corp for months, poring over financial reports, listening in on boardroom whispers, thanks to a strategically placed bug in David's office. Don't judge, it's called research, and I had found it. David's Achilles heel. A series of impending financial missteps, risky investments, and, let's just say some creative accounting that would make even the most seasoned Wall Street wolf blush. This is it, Ben, I said, showing him the incriminating documents on my laptop. This is the smoking gun. This is what's going to bring him down. Ben stared at the documents, his eyes wide with a mixture of awe and apprehension. Dude, this is huge. This could destroy him. That's the point, I said, a cold, hard glint in my eyes. But leaking this information? Ben hesitated. It's risky. What if it gets traced back to you? It won't, I said confidently. I've covered my tracks. This is going to be anonymous, a whisper in the wind, a leak from an unknown source. I knew the right people. Journalists hungry for a scoop, bloggers eager to break the next big scandal, anonymous forums where rumors spread like wildfire. I carefully crafted the leak, packaging the information in a way that would maximize its impact, ensuring it would reach the right ears, the right eyes, the right market. And then I hit the send button. The fallout was spectacular. The news spread like wildfire, fueled by speculation, innuendo, and the undeniable truth of the leaked documents. Lancaster Corp scandal, the headline screamed. Financial mismanagement, the analysts whispered. Creative accounting, the regulators frowned. David's carefully constructed image began to crumble. His reputation, once pristine, was now tarnished, his credibility shredded. The investors, once eager to throw money at him, were now pulling out their funds, their trust shattered. Dude, the stock is plummeting, Ben exclaimed, watching the ticker on his screen with a mixture of excitement and nervousness. It's like a free fall. I watched the numbers drop, a grim satisfaction washing over me. This was it. The beginning of the end for David Lancaster. The culmination of my plan, the fruit of my revenge. David, predictably, panicked. He called emergency meetings, desperately trying to contain the damage, to spin the narrative, to salvage his reputation. But it was too late. The whispers had become a roar, the doubts had become convictions, the cracks in his facade had become gaping holes. I watched him from afar, a silent observer, a puppet master pulling the strings. I saw the desperation in his eyes, the fear in his voice, the defeat that was slowly creeping in. He's losing it, Jason, Ben said, watching a news report of David's frantic press conference. He's cracking. Good, I said, my voice cold, hard. He deserves it. Ben didn't say anything, but I could see the unease in his eyes. He didn't understand. He didn't understand the depths of my anger, the burning need for justice, the satisfaction I derived from watching David's downfall. But he didn't need to understand. He just needed to trust me. And he did. And as I sat there, late one night, watching the news reports of David's crumbling empire, the stock ticker plummeting, the investors fleeing, I couldn't help but smile. The game was nearing its end, and I was about to win. David, the man who once exuded an aura of invincibility, was now a shadow of his former self. The swagger was gone, replaced by a frantic energy, his eyes shadowed with desperation. The leak had hit him hard, harder than I had anticipated. Lancaster Corp was hemorrhaging money. Investors were fleeing like rats from a sinking ship, and his carefully crafted empire was teetering on the brink of collapse. He needed a lifeline, and he knew exactly where to find it. Sophia's father, Mr. Harrington, was a titan of industry, a man who could make or break fortunes with a single phone call. David, with his pride swallowed and his desperation palpable, had no choice but to grovel. I watched the meeting unfold from afar, a fly on the wall thanks to a strategically placed contact in Mr. Harrington's office. Okay, maybe I have a knack for espionage. Don't judge. Mr. Harrington, David pleaded, his voice hoarse. I need your help. Lancaster Corp is facing some challenges. We need an investment, a lifeline. Mr. Harrington, a shrewd businessman with eyes that missed nothing, leaned back in his chair, his expression unreadable. Challenges, David, he said, his voice laced with a hint of amusement. I believe the word on the street is scandal. Ugh, David winced. It's a misunderstanding, he stammered, a temporary setback. We have a plan, a strategy. A strategy that involves creative accounting and risky investments? Mr. Harrington interrupted, his voice sharp, cutting. David squirmed under his gaze. It's not as bad as it seems, he mumbled. Isn't it, David? Mr. Harrington said, his eyes narrowing. My daughter tells me a different story. She tells me about a CEO who is distracted, a CEO who is more interested in personal matters than his company's bottom line. The mention of Sophia hung heavy in the air. David's face flushed, a mixture of anger and embarrassment. He knew that Mr. Harrington was referring to his relationship with Sophia, a relationship that had been more about social climbing than, well, love. Sophia, she doesn't understand, David stammered. Doesn't she, David? Mr. Harrington said, his voice laced with a warning. Or is it you who doesn't understand? You've built your empire on a foundation of sand, David. And now, the tide is coming in. David's shoulders slumped. He knew that Mr. Harrington was right. He had been reckless, arrogant, blinded by his own ambition. And now he was paying the price. So, Mr. Harrington continued, his voice softening slightly, what makes you think I should invest in a sinking ship? David looked up, a flicker of desperation in his eyes. Because I can save it, he pleaded, I just need a chance, an opportunity. Mr. Harrington studied him for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then, finally, he spoke. "All right, David," he said, his voice firm, decisive. "I'll give you a chance, but it will come at a price." David's eyes widened with hope. "A price? Anything. Name it." Mr. Harrington leaned forward, his gaze piercing. "My price, David," he said, "is control." Mr. Harrington's control wasn't just a figure of speech. It was a carefully orchestrated maneuver, a chess move several steps ahead. He had agreed to invest in Lancaster Corp, but on one condition. David had to relinquish a controlling share of the company, a seemingly small concession that would ultimately seal his fate. I watched it all unfold, a silent observer, a puppet master pulling the strings from the shadows. Mr. Harrington's investment was a Trojan horse, a lifeline that would ultimately become a noose around David's neck. The stock price stabilized momentarily. The initial panic subsided, replaced by a cautious optimism. David, believing he had been saved, resumed his role as the confident CEO, albeit with a slightly more subdued swagger. He was playing a dangerous game, a game he didn't even realize he was losing. My move was swift, decisive, and satisfying. I leveraged my accumulated shares, combined with Mr. Harrington's newly acquired stake, to launch a hostile takeover. It was a corporate coup, a power grab that would leave David utterly and completely defeated. The boardroom showdown was anticlimactic. No shouting matches, no dramatic speeches, just cold, hard numbers and the undeniable reality of my superior position. David, blindsided by the move, was utterly unprepared. His carefully constructed facade of control crumbled, revealing the fear and desperation beneath. What is this?" he stammered, his face pale, his voice trembling. "What's going on?" "It's a takeover, David," I said, my voice calm, even. "A hostile takeover. And I'm the one doing the taking." He stared at me, his eyes wide with disbelief. "You? But you're my protege. My friend." "Friend?" I echoed, a humorless laugh escaping my lips. "David, you never had any friends. You only had assets, and now you're mine." He tried to argue, to negotiate, to plead, but it was useless. The numbers were against him. The votes were cast. The decision was made. "It's over, David," I said, my voice cold, hard. "You've lost." He slumped back in his chair, his shoulders slumping, his spirit broken. The realization of his defeat washed over him, a crushing wave of despair. He had been outmaneuvered, outplayed, outsmarted, and by me. The transition was swift. My team moved in, taking control of the company's operations, its finances, its everything. David was escorted out of the building, a defeated, broken man, his empire reduced to rubble. I watched him go, a grim satisfaction washing over me. This was it, the culmination of years of planning, of strategizing, of revenge. I had taken everything from him, his company, his reputation, his pride. "Dude, you did it," Ben said, his voice filled with a mixture of awe and apprehension. "You actually did it." "I did," I said, my voice flat, emotionless. "What now?" Ben asked. "Now," I said, a slow smile spreading across my face. "We finished the game." The takeover wasn't just about taking David's company. It was about taking everything, and I wasn't finished yet. The news of David's downfall and my sudden rise to power spread through the business world like wildfire. It was a story ripped from the headlines, a tale of ambition, betrayal, and, well, let's just say a healthy dose of schadenfreude. And Sophia, ever the opportunist, was quick to sniff out the shifting winds of fortune. She appeared in my office one afternoon, unannounced, a vision of carefully crafted remorse and designer-clad desperation. Gone was the confident social climber who had walked out on me 5 years ago. In her place stood a woman whose carefully constructed world had crumbled, leaving her with nothing but regret and a dwindling trust fund. Jason, she began, her voice trembling with a practiced vulnerability. We need to talk. I leaned back in my chair, my expression carefully neutral, though inwardly I was relishing the moment. Sophia, I said, my voice cool, devoid of any warmth. What a surprise. To what do I owe the pleasure? I heard about David, she said, her eyes downcast, a single tear rolling down her perfectly sculpted cheek. I'm so sorry. Sorry? I echoed, raising an eyebrow. Sorry that he lost his company? Or sorry that you chose the wrong horse in this race? Her gaze snapped up, a flicker of anger momentarily replacing the carefully cultivated sadness. That's not fair, Jason, she said, her voice laced with a hint of defiance. I made a mistake. I was young, naive. Naive? I interrupted, a humorless laugh escaping my lips. Sophia, you weren't naive. You were ambitious. You wanted a life of luxury, of comfort, of more. And you chose David because you thought he could give you that. But I was wrong, she insisted, her voice cracking. I realize that now. I miss you, Jason. I miss us. Us, I echoed, the word dripping with sarcasm. There is no us, Sophia. You made that abundantly clear 5 years ago when you walked out that door. But I've changed, she pleaded, her voice trembling. I'm not the same person I was back then. I realize now that true happiness isn't about money or status. It's about love. Love. The word felt hollow, meaningless. Where was this love when I was struggling, when I was building my dreams, when I needed her? Love Sophia? I scoffed. You don't know the meaning of the word. You loved the idea of David, the idea of his wealth, the idea of the life he could provide. And now that he's gone, you're back here, trying to salvage what you can from the wreckage. She flinched, her carefully constructed facade cracking under the weight of my words. That's not true, she protested, her voice weak. I care about you, Jason. I always have. Cared enough to leave me when I needed you most? I countered, my voice laced with a bitterness I couldn't quite suppress. Cared enough to watch me struggle while you enjoyed the fruits of David's success? She didn't answer, her gaze fixed on the floor, her shoulders slumping. The silence stretched between us, heavy with unspoken truths and the bitter remnants of a love that had long since turned to ash. Sophia, I said finally, my voice firm, resolute. It's over. We're over. You made your choice 5 years ago, and now you have to live with the consequences. She looked up, her eyes filled with a mixture of regret and desperation. But Jason, please. No, Sophia, I interrupted, my voice cold, final. I'm not your backup plan. I'm not your safety net. I'm not yours. Not anymore. And with that, I stood up, dismissing her with a wave of my hand. She lingered for a moment, her lips trembling, her eyes pleading. But I didn't waver. I had moved on. I had built my empire, my success, my life. Without her. And I didn't need her now. As she walked out of my office, her footsteps echoing in the silent hallway, I felt a surge of liberation. The past was finally behind me. The future was mine. And Sophia Lancaster, well, she was just a ghost of a life I no longer lived. Evelyn didn't storm into my office, fists clenched and accusations flying. No, that wasn't her style. Instead, she appeared quietly, a hesitant knock on the door, her eyes filled with a sadness that mirrored the storm brewing inside me. Jason, she began, her voice soft, hesitant. Can we talk? I gestured towards the chair opposite my desk, the same chair Sophia had occupied just days before. The irony wasn't lost on me. Evelyn, I said, my voice carefully neutral, this is unexpected. I know, she said, her gaze fixed on her hands clasped tightly in her lap. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't important. What's important, Evelyn? I asked, though I already knew the answer. She took a deep breath, her shoulders squaring with a resolve that belied her gentle demeanor. David, she said, her voice trembling slightly. He's lost everything, Jason. His company, his reputation, his everything. He made his choices, Evelyn, I said, my voice hardening. He played a dangerous game, and he lost. I know, she said, her voice filled with a sadness that tugged at my heart. But he's still my brother, and I can't just stand by and watch him crumble. She looked up, her eyes pleading. Jason, please, she said, her voice breaking. I know you're angry. I know you have every right to be. But please, don't destroy him completely. Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. I had been so focused on my revenge, on taking everything from David, that I hadn't considered the collateral damage. Evelyn, the one good thing in this whole messed up situation. The one person who had seen me, the real me, not the vengeful ghost I had become. Evelyn, I began, my voice softening. I know what he did was wrong, she interrupted, her voice firm. He hurt you. He hurt Sophia. He deserves to lose. But does he deserve to lose everything? His home, his dignity, his future? Her words echoed in my mind, a stark contrast to the cold, hard satisfaction I had felt just days before. Was this what I really wanted? To completely destroy David? To leave him with nothing? I looked at Evelyn, her face etched with worry, her eyes filled with a plea that I couldn't ignore. And in that moment, I realized that my revenge had gone too far. I had become the very thing I had despised. The ruthless, heartless businessman who cared only about winning, no matter the cost. Evelyn, I said, my voice hoarse, I don't know what to say. Just think about it, Jason, she pleaded. Think about the kind of man you want to be, the kind of future you want to build. Do you want to be remembered as the man who destroyed David Lancaster? Or the man who showed mercy? She stood up, her gaze lingering on mine for a moment, then turned and walked away, leaving me alone with my thoughts, my doubts, my conflicted heart. I had been so focused on the past, on righting the wrongs, on getting even, that I had lost sight of the present, of the future, of Evelyn. And as I sat there, the weight of her words pressing down on me, I knew that I had a choice to make. A choice that would define not only David's future, but my own. Evelyn's words echoed in my mind long after she left. The kind of man you want to be. The kind of future you want to build. They were simple words, yet they carried the weight of 1,000 truths. I paced my office, the city lights blurring through the panoramic windows, a battle raging within me. On one side, the vengeful ghost of the past, whispering promises of retribution, of satisfaction, of closure. On the other side, a flicker of something new, something better. A future with Evelyn. A future built on compassion, on empathy, on love. The old Jason, the one who had been betrayed, humiliated, and left for dead, craved revenge. He wanted to see David broken, destitute, stripped of everything he held dear. He wanted to taste the sweet nectar of victory, to savor the bitter tang of David's defeat. But the new Jason, the one who had been reborn, the one who had built an empire, the one who had found love. He hesitated. He saw the pain in Evelyn's eyes, the genuine concern for her brother, the disappointment. In her gaze when she looked at him, the man she had come to admire. Was this who he wanted to be? A man driven by vengeance, blinded by anger, willing to sacrifice everything, even love, for the sake of revenge? The answer, surprisingly, was no. I had already won. I had built my empire, achieved my success, proven myself to the world, and to Sophia. David was defeated, his company in ruins, his reputation tarnished. Did I really need to twist the knife further? To inflict more pain, more suffering? The image of Evelyn's face flashed through my mind, her eyes filled with a plea that I couldn't ignore. And in that moment, I made my decision. I wouldn't destroy David completely. I wouldn't take everything from him. I would leave him with enough to rebuild, to start over, to learn from his mistakes. It wasn't about forgiveness, not really. It was about moving on, about choosing a different path, a path that led towards a future with Evelyn, a future built on something more than just revenge. I called my lawyers, revised the terms of the takeover, ensuring that David would retain a small portion of his wealth, enough to maintain a comfortable life, to survive. It wasn't much, but it was enough. And as I signed the final documents, a sense of peace settled over me. It wasn't the triumphant exhilaration I had expected, but a quiet, subtle satisfaction. I had won, but I had also grown. I had chosen compassion over vengeance, love over hate, and the future over the past. And as I looked out the window at the city lights twinkling in the distance, I knew that I'd made the right decision. Because sometimes, the greatest victory isn't about destroying your enemies, but about saving yourself. Evelyn's reaction wasn't what I expected. No tears, no dramatic pronouncements of gratitude. Instead, she simply looked at me, her eyes searching mine, a slow smile spreading across her face. "Thank you, Jason," she said, her voice soft, sincere. "You have no idea what this means to me." "It was the right thing to do," I mumbled, feeling a warmth spread through me that had nothing to do with revenge. "It was more than that," she insisted, her gaze unwavering. "It was kind, compassionate. It was—" She paused, her cheeks flushing slightly. "It was the kind of thing a good man would do." A good man. The words resonated with me, a stark contrast to the image I had been cultivating, the ruthless businessman, the vengeful ghost. Maybe there was still some good in me after all. The shift in our relationship was subtle at first. The hesitant glances, the lingering touches, the unspoken words hanging heavy in the air. We were both treading carefully, navigating the aftermath of David's downfall, the shadow of my revenge. But then, slowly, tentatively, we started dating. Real dates, not the "let's grab coffee and discuss my brother's impending financial ruin" kind of dates. We went to museums, explored hidden bookstores, even took a disastrous cooking class together. Turns out neither of us is a culinary prodigy. The less said about the burnt souffle, the better. "This is nice," I said one evening as we were strolling along the riverbank, the city lights reflecting on the water, a comfortable silence settling between us. "Nice?" she echoed, her lips curving into a playful smile. "Just nice?" Okay, I conceded. "It's amazing. But you know what I mean. It's easy, real, like we can just be ourselves." She nodded, her eyes shining with understanding. "I know what you mean, Jason, and I feel it too." With Evelyn, there were no games, no pretenses, no need to prove myself. She saw me, the real me, the man beneath the ambition, the vulnerability beneath the armor. And she accepted me. We talked about everything and nothing, our conversations flowing effortlessly, punctuated by laughter and shared silences. She challenged my opinions, made me question my assumptions, and, well, made me want to be a better man. "You know," she said one day as we were having lunch in a bustling cafe, "you're not at all what I expected." "Oh?" I said, raising an eyebrow. "And what did you expect?" "A ruthless, cold-hearted shark," she admitted, a mischievous glint in her eyes. "Ouch," I said, feigning offense. "And what am I, then?" "A softie," she said, her smile widening. "A softie with a sharp mind and a surprisingly good heart." A softie. Me? The guy who had orchestrated a corporate takeover, who had relished in his enemy's downfall? Maybe she was right. Maybe beneath the layers of ambition and revenge, there was still a softie lurking within. And as I looked at her, her eyes sparkling with warmth and affection, I realized that my redemption wasn't just about letting go of the past. It was about embracing the present, about building a future with Evelyn, a future filled with love, laughter, and, well, maybe the occasional burnt souffle.